how to ask for and get a dinner deal for your social group or your business group or whatever event that you've actually got. Getting a dinner deal could make the difference between a profit or a loss, or just simply getting the kind of a deal that you're excited about that you can take to your members and say, wow, here folks, book now, here's what I've got for you. That's what you can say to them once you've got the right kind of a dinner deal. So consider this to be a little brief tutorial on how you can actually achieve that result, and maybe you might even be able to do this in 1 or 2 hours of just shopping around to different cafes and restaurants and see what's available out there. Okay, so how are we actually going to achieve this particular goal? Firstly, what I would suggest is that you go to maybe say a restaurant or cafe area, and like for example here, if I was to do this locally up in Crow's Nest, a suburb probably no more than about a kilometre's walk away from where I am, there's a whole street full of restaurants and cafes. Of course, some of the side streets also there have some cafes and restaurants, and on any one night, and particularly on the weekends, they're fully packed. So it's a pretty good ground to actually hunt for the right kind of cafe or restaurant deal that you want. And here's how you can actually do it. First of all, consider doing this face to face. If you're doing it on the phone, most people won't pick up on the telephone. You don't know who you're going to get at the end of a telephone for a deal like this. And it's messy trying to dial number after number, even if you think you're organised in this area. What I've found works really, really well is to go from store to store to store, walk down the street and just ask one restaurant or cafe on an ongoing basis, and also have a look at the way how the seating arrangements are for that specific cafe or restaurant. That's the first thing you need to do, is do this in the first person. Do this yourself. Okay, what's one of the things you do when you look for a particular restaurant or cafe? First of all, what I do is I look at the potential seating arrangements of the cafe or restaurant. When I look in, I look to see, is this place neat and tidy? What kind of seating possibilities does the place have? And I look also to see, does this place potentially have maybe an upstairs room, or do they have a lot of seats clumped together, or different alcoves or ante-rooms? Those types of things allow or lend itself to you maybe say having a small group and having your group to have at least some kind of relative intimacy in the venue, so that you can all talk, right? So you can all enjoy together without a cacophony of noise that a lot of these places tend to have. You want to be able to have a little bit of space to yourself, and you want to be able to have it so enjoyable that when you go there, you're not feeling pressured, you're not feeling under any kind of time pressure or any kind of constant detail of having to deal with a whole lot of other people at the venue, screaming kids or a loud party over in one corner of the building where everyone's having a birthday party or something like that. You want to be able to have a venue that gives you that kind of space whereby your little group can actually enjoy itself. Okay, so that's one of the very first things you need to do as you're walking down the street. Okay, what do you do when you spot a place that you think gives you maybe a possibility that this could work? Okay, obviously, walk inside and ask them. The very first question you need to ask is, do you take group bookings? Now, I know that might sound blindingly obvious, and yes it is, but the reality is not every restaurant or cafe will take group bookings. That's an absolute fact. So you need to eliminate, first of all, do they take group bookings? And if so, under what kind of parameters or what kind of restrictions do they take those group bookings, right? So usually what I've found is that if they do take group bookings, do they require a deposit? Do they have a threshold between where the group bookings that they have over this number of people, they require a deposit, and under this number of people, they don't require a deposit. So it could be either way. You don't know unless you ask and find out, dig deep and get the specifics. What I've found is when it comes to saying, well, okay, yes, if you do have bookings, where's the threshold for if I need to put down a deposit for that? Some places, for example, might say, well, look, David, if you book over 8 people, we require XYZ deposit in dollars for you, or a credit card booking to back that up. I say, okay, fair enough. And then I've got at least a benchmark to work with there. Okay, what do you do next? Now, asking for the restaurant deal is also another interesting thing. It may yield you different types of answers. And first of all, you're going to need to say, well, okay, who am I actually speaking to? Is this the owner, the manager? Is it maybe someone connected to the ownership? Believe it or not, I've found some particular businesses that are run by large corporations and the decision makers may be hundreds of kilometres away. So you need to establish, okay, who am I asking this question to? Anyway, what I will ask is, do you have a deal for groups? You know, I've got a social group or I've got a business group. Do you offer a deal for group bookings? Now, they can either say yes or no. If it's a particularly nice restaurant and they say, no, we don't offer any special deals, I might say, well, if you did have a deal, what would it look like? So remember, that's the same question, but asked just a slightly different type of way. Why? Sometimes, if it's the owner in particular, he or she might budge and say, oh, well, okay, yes. If I did have a deal, they'll be asking it inside their own head. And they'll be saying, yes, okay, right, yes. Well, look, if I was to have a deal, it would be blah, 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 and blah. And then you've automatically got something to get going with. Now, just to give you a little bit of an example as to what's involved with this. One time when I was just starting off with doing group dinner deals for my social group, I did literally what I said before. I went from restaurant to restaurant and kept asking, do you take group bookings? Do you have any special group dinner deals for my group? And one chap said, yeah, okay. Yeah, look, we do. Look, can you tell me a bit about your group? So I said, yeah, look, I've got a group which is this. Generally, they're between this age to this age. And if I set this all up, they're going to prepay me so that I can pay you on the night one whole hit, and so on and so on. So this particular chap, as an example, he sat down with me and said, well, look, since I advertise my restaurant in the local paper or whatever the case was, he says, I'll view this as a kind of a promotional deal. So what he did was he said, well, look, I will give you course A, course B, and I'll even throw in the dessert for you, but can you make sure that your group will be buying wines and drinks on the night? And I said, yes, mister, I will guarantee that they will. It may not be 100% of them, but I will guarantee probably at least 80% of them will buy wines and alcoholic drinks on the night. Is that okay? He said, yep, that's fine, that's great. Obviously, he gave me a discount, and it was a really, really good discount. He basically took the menu, gave me a copy of the menu. He wrote down, just in rough writing hand at the time, here's what the deal one is, here's what the first course is, here's what the second course is, here's what the bonus third course is. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. You know, and I got a deal that was probably nearly double the price of what everyone else would pay at the restaurant on that night, down to nearly half the price. Not quite, but pretty close to nearly half the price of what the full retail was. Absolutely amazing deal. Why? All because I simply asked for the deal. I know it sounds stupidly obvious, but look, if you don't ask, you don't get. And the funny thing was is that when my group came along, the restaurant owner and his staff all had a great time. I think it's because they really wanted to leave an impression with my group. They really wanted to say, well, okay, these people are coming along to try out what the restaurant had to offer. And they knew that there was a potential that these people could come back again. Another thing that I also did to also help do that deal specifically well, and this is well worthwhile considering it is, because my group obviously paid me a higher price, which included my premium for the booking for running this particular event. I published on the night a special little menu just for my group, and there was basically 2 choices for each of the different courses that were there for each of them. In some cases up to 3 choices. I published a separate little menu so that they wouldn't even see the restaurant menu deal there on the night, and I published that and put my own letterhead at the top and so forth, and put courtesy of the restaurant name at the bottom. And I presented that to my group. Now, I had around about 20 people up that night. Now, obviously I went in and said, look, what can I do? I might get about 10 people. I wound up with about 20 people on the night. It was fantastic. But it set me off on one particular way of doing things. By doing that and offering a deal, I was able to make a profitable event for myself. The restaurant owner was able to make a profitable event. My group bought lots and lots of alcohol the night. Maybe not too much. Some of them did have to obviously take a taxi home. Some of them might have only had just maybe say 1 drink, not getting too far gone, and just drove locally home. The point I'm trying to make here is that if you ask for the right kind of a deal, you can get something to work here. Now, this can work not just for dinners, but also for lunches as well. So if you're doing a luncheon event, consider the possibilities of doing something fairly similar. And it's worthwhile also looking at how you can actually do this to expand the concept of what your group is going to actually offer. If your group is going to expand and do something important, it's important that you try things out of the local area that you normally run your events at. Whether that's you've got one favourite suburb for doing this and one favourite suburb for this, why not expand the circle just a few kilometres further and take your group somewhere special? And yes, this can also work too with a 4 or 5 star hotel or 4 or 5 star restaurant venue as well. So consider the possibilities of taking this just a little bit further. Now, if you like this particular content, I post videos like this every week. So what I would suggest is please subscribe, and also please look at this video as well, which might be on this side as well. Please look at the next video that we've got here. I've got a lot of exciting content that goes up all the time. And please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos with me as well. Thanks for your company. This is David Newton speaking.